All right, let's get to our first exercise. So essentially what we're going to be doing for part one is we're going to be going from the thing on the left to the thing on the right. So we're going to start off with some to-dos. We're going to have a little really basic main.elm with a little bit of code in it. And what we're going to do is we're going to build it out and do a little bit of rendering such that we end up with something that looks much nicer. That's going to be sort of the starting point for our conduit application that we're going to be building. So there are some instructions in part one /readme.md. I'm going to hop on over there. Worth noting that you should have this server running from the introduction thing. We're not actually going to use the server for the first couple exercises because I want to demonstrate just like if you were really starting from scratch and all you wanted to do was just build some plain index.html main.elm, here's how you do it. But partway through the workshop, we are going to switch to using this server and this more fully fledged code base. So you want to make sure that you're leaving this running in a separate tab for the entire workshop. Okay, so we're in this intro directory. So you should have cloned the workshop by now, and then there are two directories inside the root directory. One's called intro, one's called advanced. As you may have guessed, there are two workshops I'm doing here. One is the intro workshop, and the other is the advanced workshop. Definitely want to use the intro workshop for this, because the advanced one would be way too hard for what you know about Elm so far. Inside this intro folder, we can see we have a README and then a bunch of other folders. So part 1 through part 9, those correspond to the different lessons we're going to do. And then server holds on to all the back-end stuff that we're going to be using when we get a little bit further on. So the README explains sort of how to get set up, and then each of these parts has its own README inside of it. So we're going to cd into part 1, and when we do these other exercises, we're going to go up a directory and go back into part 2, go into part 3, etc. Inside this directory, let me clear real quick, we can see a couple of different things. You may not have an Elm stuff directory. This is a temp directory that just stores stuff that the compiler uses. So it's always safe to blow that away if you don't. So don't worry about it. It goes in git ignore. Also, there's that elm.js file. You might not see that because you haven't actually run Elm make yet. Again, that's also safe to remove, and that's also git ignored because it's fundamentally something that's generated by the compiler. So both of those can always be gotten rid of. So this is probably what you're seeing. Main.elm, readme.md, elm.json, and index.html. We'll get into elm.json a little bit later. That has your dependencies for your application. Index.html is just the basic plain HTML page that is going to import the .js file that we're going to compile. And then finally we have main.elm, which is the thing we're going to be working on. So let's go ahead and open this up in our editors. I'm going to use Atom for this workshop, but there are a whole bunch of different editors you can use for Elm. They all have plugins and stuff like that, but Atom's the one I'm going to happen to choose here. So this is our main.elm file. Let's not quite dive into this just yet. Let's first start by looking at the README, because each of these parts has a slightly different README that describes what we're going to do. Okay, so first of all, we have some build instructions. So if we want to cd into part 1 directory and run elm make main.elm --output elm.js, let's go ahead and do that. So, as previously noted on the slide, dependencies loaded from local cache, dependencies ready, success, compiled one module. So whenever we want to rebuild our file, we're just going to keep doing that, just keep rerunning that command, and it's just going to keep rebuilding it. By the way, you notice the output message is a little bit different on these subsequent runs. The first one, when it says dependencies loaded from local cache, dependencies ready, what that's talking about is regenerating the Elm stuff directory. So that's something that it uses for caching. On an application this small, it's trivial. There's not much to cache. But on a bigger application, that Elm stuff directory will save you a good bit of time as you do incremental recompiles. Oops, go back to my editor. Okay, and then we're going to open index.html in the browser. So on macOS, you can just type open, but otherwise you may want to open it in like a directory, something like that. In the future, we'll be going to localhost for the server, but for now, we're just going to do it like this. So as you can see, we have a beautiful page here. It says, to do, replace this div with the banner, and then in parentheses, in the future, we'll display a feed of articles here. Okay, so let's actually make this happen. So the way we're going to do this is open main.elm in your editor and resolve the to-dos there. After you complete each one, rerun elm make main.elm on the terminal to recompile the elm.js file, then refresh the browser to see the results. There's ways to get live reloading and stuff like that, but again, for this workshop, we're just going to keep it really simple so you can just understand the underlying tools that all of these other nicer tools are building on top of. Okay, main.elm. So inside this, we can see a bunch of different concepts that we've seen before. So we've got these divs here with classes, got some text. We're assigning some things to names. So we've got a thing called feed, we've got a thing called main. Ultimately, all you need to do for this exercise is to follow these to-dos. So whenever you see this little emoji and a to-do, it's going to describe what you need to do in that case. As far as this stuff up top, we didn't really talk about modules and imports. No need to worry about those for the purpose of this exercise. All you need to do is focus on the to-dos and resolving them.